Many secret projects were performed under the codename of MK Ultra. This video here focuses on the most successful one of them, the trauma-based induction of multiple personalities within one human body. Very serious no bullshit warning: if there's even the slightest chance that you have had mind control done to you, you must not watch this video, as it is guaranteed to trigger things in you. If you are consulting a therapist for multiple personality disorder, currently known as dissociative identity disorder, DID, it is recommended that you consult your therapist before watching this video. This is a totally serious warning, and I am not responsible for anything that happens if you watch this video. Do it on your own risk. The complications that could result for those under mind control learning the truth could be fatal. So, treat this information highly seriously and with the most discretion possible. This video is the first of a series to come, and it lays down the foundational knowledge that the other videos will build upon. I purposely use simple text box illustrations to reduce the amount of potentially triggering images. I aim for around 90% accuracy with my information, as double checking every small detail would take up too much time. Hello and welcome to the quick rundown on MK Ultra. Again, a serious trigger warning. This video will talk about the darkest of human aspects, including generational ritual abuse and other types of satanic stuff. If you think that you had experienced this stuff in the past, please avoid this video, as it might trigger things in you, and seek out help. The main reason why I do this video is to disarm the cults, because one of the primary weapons is the "oh, nobody will believe you" line. If a normal looking child comes to you and tells you about most insane bloody satanic ritual things, the average person would be inclined to think that the child watched too much TV. I mean, there's no way that that kind of thing could happen in my neighborhood, right? Wrong. The cult is present in every country, in every city of the world, even in the most poorest of shitholes. The darkness has spread to every corner of this world, and it's now up to us to shine the light on it, to illuminate the Illuminati, because shit like that has no place in my timeline. Seriously. My goal at the moment is just to let you know that this type of stuff is real, to arm you with knowledge, so that should you encounter a person that is obviously under MK Ultra mind control or has escaped the cult, then you will know that he or her are not crazy. I want to disarm the "oh, nobody will believe you" line. Sadly, most of the police are on it and literally will not believe you. So should you encounter an MK Ultra victim, just treat them well, don't cause any fuss. Give them a warm drink, let them charge their phones, don't ask too many questions, as it might endanger them or even yourself. Just be a kind guy. In the near future things will change, but for now spreading the word about these insane things is the best path of action I can think of. MK Ultra was the name of a governmental program that started after the end of the Second World War. The goal was to learn about all the possible ways to brainwash people. All kinds of techniques were tried: drugs, famously LSD, and electroshocks, and everything else they could think of. Operation Paperclip brought many ex-Nazi German scientists to the US, where they continued their experiments. But you most likely already know all of this, so let's dive into the hardcore aspect of MK Ultra, the programming. I personally am very fascinated by this topic, because it shows what the human body and soul are capable of. Sadly, the way these powers are unlocked are profoundly inhumane. So, the thing that is known as MK Ultra is based on a weird quirk of the human body/soul, that in times of extreme trauma, the soul seems to dissociate from the body. Example: little Jimmy is bound to a chair and can't move. A torturer comes and starts to torture him. Jimmy can't run away, he can't do nothing. What happens then is that the soul is looking for a way to escape the pain. Why am I being tortured? Jimmy asked himself. Maybe because I was a naughty boy? So then, a naughty child persona is created in the mind of Jimmy. The soul literally splits into two. The original Jimmy now is floating next to his body, watching how the naughty Jimmy is being tortured because he was naughty and naughty children have to be tortured. Original Jimmy feels no pain now. By splitting his personality, he succeeded in his mission to avoid the pain. There are now two people living inside Jimmy's body, one naughty Jimmy and the original Jimmy. Naughty Jimmy only comes into play when the trigger of pain is being introduced. At all other times, normal Jimmy is in the driver's seat of the body. And this is the basic idea of MK Ultra. Now turn it up to 11, well actually 20, then you get what is being done today. The splitting of personalities was turned into a fine-tuned and highly profitable science. The result is really a dream of all secretive groups, multiple personalities inside one body. Where the outside observer might see a normal typical student lady, inside that lady could be up to one of all of these types. Assassin, sex slave, MK Ultra trainer, innocent front persona, breeder, psychic persona, thing telepathy, 360-degree vision, and much more. Photographic memory living camera, keeper of secrets. Personas that solely fill the role of a door, a window, a wall, etc., as these elements are required for the programming, just as grammar and punctuation marks are required for written language. And suicide programs that are triggered when a programmed event occurs, for example, when somebody starts to leak secrets, or when the overall programming as a whole starts to fail. The result is that a skilled programmer can create a perfect, undetectable human spy, or news anchor, or even president. The programmer can create whatever the organization requires. Where did I get all that information from? Mostly from this book, The Illuminati Formula to Create an Undetectable Total Mind-Controlled Slave, by Fritz Springmeier and Cisco Wheeler. Then there was this German book describing the story of 3 people who had massive suppressed childhood traumas that they only started to remember when they were in their early 30s. Horrible, totally mind-fucking stuff that cross-confirmed many of the other findings. And then of course there's this YouTube girl, formerly known as Katie Groves, now under the name of Dylan Groves, who tells her tale of escaping the cult, her former life as an MK Ultra trainer, some more recent MK Ultra techniques, as well as many of the very dark things she had to do while in the cult. All her stories are consistent with the other mentioned sources. Then, of course, there were many random tales, random sources, like for example a highly psychic German girl who could remote view anything. She was always drawn to children being held in cages in underground places, as well as also in luxuriously looking places. She even wrote letters with detailed descriptions of the things she saw to the authorities, but of course never got an answer. And then there's Swali, however you pronounce it, an ex-cult member that is also writing lots of valuable information on the cult and all that related fucked up shit. And finally there are also some mainstream media documentaries on satanism and child abuse that I have seen on German TV, for example. The therapists there tell the same stories as, are cross-confirmed by the other sources. If you want to read more for yourself, dive deeper, you can either consult this excellent recent German book or check out these websites. If you want to learn more on the split personality disorder from a non-conspiratorial side, then check out this lady's channel, where she explains things from her normal daily life perspective. And then of course there's the legendary ODD TV. Here are 5 videos you should definitely watch after you finish this one. You will see that they love to hide the truth in the plains of sights. For example, one element shown is that when somebody looks into a mirror, they don't see themselves reflected in it. No, they see a different persona, alter reflected in it. I always wondered why Hollywood would spend so much money on crazy artistic illogical movies. But then, after I learned about MK Ultra, it all made sense. The ratings don't matter. These movies are not made to earn a big profit. No, they're used for programming purposes, and maybe also for the you have to tell the truth to the public thing. The fact that Hollywood spent so much money to make these types of movies was the final nail in the coffin for me. It showed me that it's all real, because there's no other explanation. History. My personal guess is that these techniques were discovered hundreds or even thousands of years ago. Back then, these secret techniques were maybe mostly used by dark cults. Then, the Spanish Inquisition was formed, and those guys were actively looking for new ways to fuck with the human mind. Perhaps they rediscovered some of these methods by themselves, or they received them from torturing dark cultists. The next probable step in the history of MKUltra were Nazi scientists, who had collected all the books on the cult they could get their hands on, and had the financial and moral backing of the government to explore the potential of their ideas. Then Operation Paperclip brought these experts to the US, where they and their children are operating from to this very day. According to some cult survivors, up to 10% of the whole US population is directly involved with the cult. There are whole towns where everybody is a cult member. There are many movies with this type of plot, so I will not go into details here, you can imagine the rest. Okay, now back to the techniques. The idea is to split the mind of the target. This means that mind-altering drugs can be applied. Reality does not matter, only the perception of reality matters. Making a target believe that something is happening is just as effective as the same thing really happening in reality. So, a lot of torture and training can be done virtually, as even with the most primitive of VR headsets, a properly drugged person cannot differentiate reality from simulation. The VR suit you see on the right was created by VLP Research, a company founded in the year 1984. Given the known fact that the military has access to technology decades ahead of us, it's possible that some circles might have had access to VR technology since the early 70s or 80s. And here a scene from the 1992 movie Lawnmower Man. One particularly useful example of this would be in the MKUltra Assassin training, where the asset is asked to shoot his parents. If he obliges without hesitation, then the training is deemed a success. For this, the target only has to be drugged and placed in a real VR set, and 3D figures that look like the parents have to be loaded in. There is no need to harm anybody for this training to take place. This saves time and resources while being just as effective as the real thing. I think the best way to explain the training is to start from the very beginning. Not all humans are suited to become good MKUltra slaves/assets. It's a genetic thing. That's why the monarch butterfly is a commonly used symbol, as those butterflies seem to be able to carry memories in their DNA. Look them up on Wikipedia, it's a highly interesting insect. That's why most MKUltra families are in the cult for many generations. It's called satanic ritual generational abuse for a reason. So, let's say one of these families has a new baby. For the first 3 years, the child is raised with love, very similar to normal children. Reason being that if the training would start any earlier, the child would most likely not survive it. Update. It seems that Nazi scientists after the Second World War continued to improve their craft, and they found that the earliest time they could start the programming was actually when the baby was not born and still in the womb of the mother. Link in the description. Depending on the desired role of the child, the training then begins around age 3. The goals are to split the personality via massive trauma. The best way to do this has been developed into an exact science. You have handlers playing the role of evil people who scare the child. Then you have people who play the role of the savior, who come and rescue the pure child from the hands of evil. Then you have others who turn from good to bad unless the child performs a certain action. It's complex, but when done correctly, it causes the child to be totally fucked in the head. It then cannot differentiate the real world from the artificially created fantasy world in his mind. Keywords: Alice in Wonderland, or the 3D cartoon movie Caroline, or the old school 1986 movie The Labyrinth. There are actually many movies describing exactly how the trained child feels/perceives reality. Reality and fantasy mix into one. They're hiding the truth in plain sight, but nobody is able to see. Okay, back to the topic. If done right, that means that the trainer can change the perception of the child, make it do horrible things while feeding it the illusion that it's actually doing a totally normal thing. For example, telling the child that these are totally normal sounds that sometimes a cake makes when it's cut into pieces. You get the idea. The imagination of the trainer is the limit. The exact training exercises depend on the desired future task of the child. It all starts so small, then gets more and more serious over time, so that the child thinks that it's all very normal. For example, in the Assassin training, the Assassin persona/alter would be first tasked to kill a fly, then a bug, then a rat, and so on, and so on, and so on. The training is generally done by two main trainers. The trainers are called handlers because they handle the asset. Generally, they are set up to be the main heroes inside a child's fantasy world. For example, the heroic father/mother figure that saved them from the evil castle so many times. That sounds like Super Mario now that I think about it. Two handlers, generally an experienced older guy and a young guy. This way, the knowledge can be taught from one generation to the other. Also, two people being involved reduces the chance of abuse or betrayal. The trainers themselves are also part of the cult and have been exposed to the same type of training since their childhood. It's called generational satanic abuse for a reason. Be aware that this stuff is very real. Many movies hide this truth in plain sight. For example, the movie Sucker Punch. The main hero there shifts into an alternative world when she gets electroshocked. In an alternative world where she is shown to be fighting fantasy monsters and evil Nazis and samurais and so on, while in reality her body is performing other tasks. So either different, more specialized persona is taking the front seat and the persona the movie follows is shown daydreaming, or the fantasy battle is the way the persona visualizes performing tasks she would normally never do by herself. The goal of the programmer is to precisely gaslight the asset in such a way that it can't differentiate reality from fantasy. When this state is achieved, the asset can be manipulated into doing literally everything the handler requires of her. The MK programming has a lot in common with computer programming. Personas/alters are hidden behind code words. Only when the handler recites the specific code words, only then the responsible alter will come to the front seat. The system is very elaborate. Trainers were seen carrying laptops with them around since the early 1980s, because it's such a complex system that they're installing into the minds of the victim that they literally require megabytes of Excel sheets to keep track of every layer, every door, every wall, every eye, and every single persona installed into the system, as well as their related secret access code phrase. An alter itself, like an app for your phone, can be designed to have access to all the senses of the human body, or none, depending on what the programmer thinks this persona requires. The peaceful everyday front persona would have access to all senses, but be blocked from the cult-related memories. You could ask this persona all kinds of cult-related questions, but it would act normally and tell you that it has no clue what you are talking about. Even under the most severe torture, it could not be able to access any blocked memories and would remain looking totally innocent. The perfect spy generals of all ages have been dreaming of. Then there are other programs/alters. Let's say the Assassin, for example. That one does not require access to your conscious or to your lovely childhood memories. It does not need to know when your parents' birthdays are or any other trivial information. The Assassin alter is an ice-cold, highly efficient death machine, only activated when needed, but highly skilled at its task as it has literally been trained since early childhood for this. An alter does not require to know its age, or the age of the human body it resides in. An alter can think it's 5 years old and have the cognitive capabilities of a 5-year-old, while the system/human body could be 40 years old or older by now. Or even the other way around. The advantage of a child alter is that they can be very easily programmed. Do this or I will harm your teddy bear. Not much is required to make sure that the child Ultra follows the programmed orders. Just to give you an idea, the usual old-school MK Ultra slave has about 30 alters inside its head. There are some real persons that you could speak with, while most only fulfill a small, highly specific task. Example giving being a wall that keeps other programs in place, or a door that only opens when a particular trigger is given. The programming generally can be upheld for a whole lifetime of a human being. It for sure needs to be serviced once in a while, but I'm sure there are many very old people in the world who are completely programmed. According to many who have fled the cult, their programming can start to show cracks at about the age of 30. As this is the time when some suppressed childhood traumas come back to the surface, or that the soul comes back into the body, or whatever. We often see that critical cult assets like movie stars or other celebrities officially go to a rehab hospital for a few weeks after a public breakdown. But not every slave can be repaired to work correctly just as before when this happens. And also, not every slave is worth the effort. Some are simply sent on a final mission. Yeah. That way, the cult can get rid of a defect slave and show the other players in their field that it's a force not to be messed with. The cult is earning money with drugs, pornography, human trafficking, as well as with all the other highly legal and extremely profitable endeavors. These types of activities also allow them to use their MK assets for high profits, and give them many opportunities to keep their skills up to date and test new inventions in the field. The programmers themselves are generally highly intelligent people who speak many languages and are very well educated. This means that some parts/alters of a system, for example, only speak Chinese, while the surface system speaks only American English and no other language. Who knows, maybe the deepest layers are programmed in ancient Babylonian. This is done to prevent any internal interaction between parts, as well as to prevent any outside source from getting easily into any juicy bits. As I guess no psychotherapist is fluent in ancient divine Egyptian. And I guess the other reason is simply because they can. Oh, your slave is only programmed in Spanish, French and Korean? You can't get into level 2 of mine without 3 dialects of the Maya language. On top of all that, you prevent the accidental activation of the critical systems. These are only accessible when the asset is highly sedated and hypnotized. The heartbeat in that state may fall to about 10 beats per minute or lower. In this state then, the critical systems can be worked on. While programming MK Ultra slaves, a lot of popular media is used. According to survivors, Star Trek and other sci-fi universes are very commonly used, because they contain a lot of complex stuff that can be used as memory training. Not only memory training, but they can also be used as places to be filled with system-relevant programs. Other timeless classics such as Alice in Wonderland are also commonly used. Maybe nowadays modern things like Game of Thrones or some other Netflix series are used by the latest programmers. Popular media is also used to trigger specific actions in MK Ultra slaves. Particularly, this could mean that when a new hot song is played on every radio station nationwide, the lyrics contain programmed trigger words that were put there by the handlers long time ago to cause a specific effect. That way, public media can be used to control an independent group of assets, no matter where they are. Let's say the president had an oopsie, and you need a distraction ASAP. You could then let your agents in the radio station play a certain rare old song to cause the programmed assets to perform some specific national-wide media attention-grabbing pre-programmed action. I think you get the idea. Edit Room Vital here. I chose this song because of these lines here. I want to shoot the whole day down. Even when I was a child and couldn't speak proper English, these lines I could understand and they stuck in my head since then. Now, today, reading the first line of the song seems to be a further indication that it's something MK Ultra related. The silicon chip inside her head gets switched to overload. Yeah, scary stuff. A comment on the music video explains the origin story of the song. Pause to read it. And To top it all off, here is the final scene of that music video. It looks like a scene that I have described just a few seconds before. A group of alters watching the real world in a TV room. Okay, now back to the video. Also, specific media references can act as triggers or code words to activate programs periodically and thus keep them constantly fresh in the mind of the asset. Example, do you remember the music that was in the background when you had your first kiss? Hearing this music triggers the memory of that event in your mind. Now replace the first kiss with some traumatizing programming experience, and now do you understand how it's done? So, yes, the cults, in part, are responsible for a repetitive media landscape. Why the same songs are played over and over again, and while the same movies are remade over and over again. Okay, now for the sad part. The end of life and self-harm programs. Those are there to protect the cult and to end the life of the asset should the asset malfunction or a successful deprogram attempt be detected. This is the main reason for the trigger warning at the start of the video. A good example for this behavior is in the movie American Ultra. The main protagonist cannot pass the river or enter an airplane, as every time he tries to do so, he gets massive stomach problems. There are literally programs installed in his system that cause this effect. A poor blind alter with the mind of the 5-year-old, maybe not even able to speak, whose whole role it is to puke whenever an airport is entered. So please be careful when you talk with ex-cult members, as literally certain keywords could cause great harm to them. Other related security programs are the Come Back Home programs, often triggered during Christmas or other big holiday times. Their main goal is to take over the system, to go to the front seat and bring the person home back to the cult. These systems are particularly dangerous for people who have escaped the cult. MKUltra symptoms. Memory loss and having no idea how one ended up where one is now are a common experience of MKUltra assets. You might remember going to school and then you woke up in your bed and now it's the next day already. Oh no, not again. But at least your homework is done. Just one of these days. And mom told me it happens from time to time. It's totally normal and natural, so no need to worry about that. What in reality happened is that your handler picked you up from school, whispered the activation codes into your ear, and with that brought forward your cult persona. You were then trained on a specific task for the whole day. The cult persona was only deactivated when you fell asleep at home. In other cases, whole days or weeks are missing from the memory, and flight tickets to foreign locations can be found in the jacket pockets. In those cases, an alter was activated to perform a certain mission for the cult. So, if you find that you yourself or a friend sometimes disappears for days without any memory of what happened, or should you sometimes wake up with bruises you cannot explain, then maybe you should be careful. The other group of alters are the supernatural alters. Those show the true capabilities of the human soul and body. If the asset has the genetic capability, it can be programmed to remote view, for example. This is done like this. The asset is tortured and then asked for the color of the teddy bear in the next room behind closed doors. The asset is tortured for hours, maybe 7 times per week, until one day it is able to see around the corner. Other objects are then placed in the room for the asset to guess. Only when it is able to do this constantly, the torture stops. Other skills include the 360-degree vision. This means that an alter is created that has access to the third eye and has the sole purpose of watching around the body at all times to keep the back of the asset clear from any danger. A highly valuable skill in certain situations for sure. Another related skill is the guardian eye. This one can be even activated when the main system is sleeping. Example, the asset arrives in a hotel room and goes to bed, but it lets the guardian eye watch the door while the main system is sleeping. Should any danger arise, the main system will be awoken instantly. Then there is telepathy. This can be used, for example, to send commands to an asset in its dreams or to extract information. Imagine having a prisoner in your cell. Day by day he spills more and more information, but then suddenly, the next day he's like a changed man and keeps his lips shut and is constantly looking for sharp objects to end his life. This can be a defect of remote access. And even in the worst case, he sent back all the information he gathered from you back to the cult. Fucked up shit, man. Telepathy can also be used to sabotage deprogramming attempts by psychotherapists. For example, the cult could install or activate remotely sabotage programs, or other programs that only pretend to show improvement in the patient. All only to waste the time of the psychotherapist, to make him believe he's making progress with a client, but in reality nothing really changes. And now it's the time that we enter the deeper themes of MKUltra, the demons. Many survivors report that rituals have been performed to install demons into them. I will leave it at this for now and not go into more detail. It's worse than you could imagine. The cult owns books with lists of demons, their rank, their names, the things the demons are good at. The maybe shocking part is that every current computer is also using demons. Those are sub-level programs. The most famous is the demon tools to emulate CDs. Check Wikipedia if you want to know more. According to the official story, of course, the computer demons have nothing in common with the horned red guys. Okay, back to the topic. The most deepest of cult secrets are stored in special books. These books are not made out of paper, but are actually altars of an MK asset. Special people are selected to become the keeper of secrets. An altar with perfect memory is installed on the deepest level of the asset. Maybe it requires 2 or more leaders of the cult to be present to be opened. That way, the cult is able to keep its darkest of secrets hidden from everybody. Only the normal stuff is written on paper. The really shady things are stored in computer made out of flesh. Pretty hardcore. Deprogramming. Now, the good news. It is possible to heal MKUltra victims. It is a hard and tedious process, but it is possible. The main idea is, taking the Jimmy from the beginning of the video as an example, to reunite the soul fragments back into one. The term is reintegration, also known as shamanic soul retrieval. Here is a list of recommended books and websites on this topic. But be aware, skilled programmers have put in measures to prevent reintegration. For example, they have put in bombs into seemingly harmless systems. Bombs that go off when they are integrated into a bigger system, causing great havoc, or worse. Also, be warned that some therapists are also cult members, and, simply said, cannot be trusted. The only advice herefore I can give is to read the mentioned books and trust your heart and your intuition when it comes to finding professional help. And if you are not involved in all these crazy things and still would like to help, then please include all the MKUltra victims into your prayers. It might help more than you think. When the Great Awakening happens, when humanity will shed itself from the grasp of whatever or whoever is holding us down, in those times then, a shit ton of healing will have to be done. Humanity will have to address its open wounds and start spiritual healing programs of unprecedented scale. Maybe you will be one of the future healers. Maybe you stumbling upon this video is no accident. There are many who have escaped the cult. The cult then, instead of simply eliminating them, does something more notorious. It makes sure that these escapees have no ways to earn money and often force them into homelessness. This move is actually pretty smart, as this way anybody who talks about crazy cult stuff is directly associated with dirty crazy homeless people. And on the other hand, it can be used by the cult to teach students. Oh, look at this guy over here. He escaped the cult, but even in the normal city nobody believed him. He went to the police, nobody believed him. He went to the press, they all thought he's crazy. And now he has to live on the street, eat trash to survive. Do you want to end up like him? Yes, you see, there's no escape from the cult. Nobody will believe you. Now go and do what we ask you to do, or you will end up like him, or worse. And that's where you and me jump in. What I have stated in this video is only a small fraction of what is really happening. Reading about this stuff for the first time was quite traumatizing for me. The shocking thing is that everything makes sense, it's logically consistent, and has been cross-confirmed by many independent sources. I hope this video will help to shine the light into this darkest of things that's happening here on our Earth. This topic is insanely huge. So huge that most people dismiss it as highly implausible. But it's real. It's very, very fucking real. My goal is to inform you, to arm you with knowledge, so that when the time comes, you shall know more than all those around you. I hereby declare that I love life and have many future plans. I do not take drugs, only occasionally a beer or two. So, expect many more videos of me to come in the near future. And, as always, find your life's path and take action.